just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Well, it's a long, long journey to the capital city. It's a long, long week while I'm sitting in committee, but I know I'll be along. Yeah, yeah, 'cause I hope and pray that I'll.
Good morning. This is Bill Scher on the Liberal Oasis radio show. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hello, Pioneer Valley. We have a jam-packed show for you today. Later in the broadcast, Roger Hickey from Campaign for America's Future will be talking about the presidential campaign and their positions on health care. But before then, this is actually perhaps the most pivotal week I've seen in the presidential campaign to date. This may have been the week where either Hillary Clinton pulls away and runs away with the whole thing, or the week where she peaks and goes downhill. Why is that? Because on Sunday, she was asked on ABC by George Stephanopoulos if she would take a pledge to remove all U.S. troops, combat or non-combat, by the end of her first term, January 2013. Let's hear that.
Can you pledge that all U.S. troops will be home over the course of your first term as president?
You know, I'm not going to get into hypotheticals and make pledges because I don't know what I'm going to inherit, George.
Now, that's huge because there's actually, now she is pulling away in the poll. She's about 20 points ahead of everybody else right now. She has effectively answered the concern that she can't win, at least in people's perception. You know, she has been able to be poised and polished. She doesn't get flustered. She doesn't make mistakes. You can't hold up any poll data that says she would automatically lose to a Republican candidate. Because she has allayed those concerns, she has started to pull away. But there's other polling that shows that most Democratic voters believe she would get all troops out in 9 months once she was in office. So if they learned that that is not her view, that could upend the race. And then this week on MSNBC, there was a presidential debate hosted by Tim Russert, and he asked all the candidates, would you take that very pledge? Here's how he put it to Barack Obama.
Will you pledge that by January 2013, the end of your first term, more than 5 years from now, there will be no U.S. troops in Iraq?
I think it's hard to project 4 years from now, and I think it would be irresponsible. We don't know what contingency will be out there.
So he opted not to make a distinction between himself and Senator Clinton on that point. And the same question was put at John Edwards.
Senator Edwards, will you commit that at the end of your first term in 2013, all U.S. troops will be out of Iraq?
I cannot make that commitment.
So all three of the leading Democratic presidential candidates not only would not take the pledge that they could not get all troops out by January 2013, 5.5 years from now, which I think is troubling on a substantive level. But on a political level, they chose not to make that distinction between themselves and Senator Clinton, which in my mind, I can't see how you dislodge her from the frontrunner's perch unless you make that argument. It is not obvious to me what other opening you have. Now, that does not mean that no candidate this week made that distinction. In fact, in the debate, Bill Richardson did. He said he would not only get troops out by January 2013, but he'd get them out within 6 months of being in office, all troops. Chris Dodd took the pledge, and Dennis Kucinich took that pledge. So there are options here. There are choices that people have, but I have to say there are other weaknesses in the Richardson, Dodd, and Kucinich campaigns, which doesn't make it obvious to me if they can use that issue to catapult into the first tier. So that's where the question is right now. Are they able to do that and knock Hillary Clinton off of the frontrunner's perch? Or if they can't, I don't see how Edwards and Obama can take her down without taking that position. So that is, to me, the key issue to watch for going forward in this presidential campaign. Other interesting thing that happened this week, we had the Iranian president, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, come to New York City for the United Nations General Assembly and was also invited to Columbia University to speak, supposedly to generate some dialogue, some understanding, build some trust, see if we can avoid a military confrontation. But this is how he was greeted by the president of Columbia, Leo Bollinger.
Mr. President, you exhibit all the signs of a petty and cruel dictator.
Now, I just don't understand what Bollinger was thinking here. I just don't. Now, this is not to say that I like Ahmadinejad or I think he's some sort of, good chap. They should be faded and toasted by any means. But if you're going to invite somebody to your house and start some dialogue, I don't understand what the value is in insulting him right off the bat. And it made me question, beforehand, I would have said, you definitely should come, you should have him speak, free speech, dialogue, all the great hippy-dippy stuff. That would be delightful. In retrospect, I don't see how we've gotten any progress, any understanding, any move forward, any additional knowledge of internal Iranian politics from this spectacle. This has just been a way for people in this country that are ginning up conflict with Iran to get more intellectual firepower, and it's a way for Ahmadinejad to shore up his standing in Iran. Look at me. I went to America, and look how they treated me. They don't want to hear from us at all. We should go on a fast track to nuclear power because there's no point in trying to cut any kind of deal with them. So I think it's been a loss on all counts. And the biggest mistake I think that was made here was treating Ahmadinejad as if he is the leader of Iran. Because he is not. He has the title of president, but in that country, that is not the leader. The supreme leader is the leader. The Ayatollah is the leader. Ahmadinejad is not even an Ayatollah. He is not a cleric. He's an elected official who does not even control the armed forces. He does not control the nuclear program. He cannot launch a strike on anybody. And his political standing in that country is actually quite weak. He has been losing to more pragmatic elements in the Iranian government. But you wouldn't know that from the spectacle that we saw this week. Just the mere fact of inviting him to Colombia as if he was the leader almost was a mistake right at the beginning. And if we are to prevent confrontation with Iran and hope for a stabilized and free Middle East region, the key thing that we have to do, we talked about this last week with Steve Clements. What Steve Clements says, we have to expose what the neoconservatives are up to. I think that's part of the equation. The other part is articulating what a different way forward would be. And number one is communicating that Iran is a rational actor. It is someone we can rationally negotiate with. What the neocons like to do, and this is an old game, is to say that they're crazy. If they're crazy people that can't be talked to, that can't be trusted, then there's no point even having a diplomatic track at all. You might as well just bomb away, because what's the point? And I can't speak to Ahmadinejad's rationality, quite frankly, although I think some of his words get misinterpreted or mistranslated or put in false context. Not to say I defend them, but it doesn't mean that he's crazy. It's just a different standard. But there have been rational acts taken by Iran, and if you look up Flint Leverett, you will find he's a former Bush administration official. He has talked about how Iran approached the Bush administration with a grand bargain to not only drop their nuclear program, or at least talk about dropping their nuclear program, but also dropping their support for anti-Israel organizations if we normalize relations with them. And our response, the Bush administration response, was to yell at the Swiss for delivering that message from Iran. And so it's not surprising that Iran took that snub and said, well, I might as well go nuclear because you're out to get me. So we have to reverse all the presumptions that we have right now if we are going to get out of this mess. And elevating Ahmadinejad as if he was the leader is not the way to do that. After this break, we'll be talking to Roger Hickey from Campaign for America's Future about the health care proposals from our presidential candidates. This is Bill Scher on the Liberal Oasis radio show. You can hear this show on LiberalOasis.com. Share it with your friends and your enemies. And don't forget, drinking liberally at the Northampton Brewery at 6:30 p.m. every Tuesday. Back after this.